Hey everyone, never thought I'd be reaching out to strangers on the internet for advice, but here I am. My wife Sarah and I have been together for 10 years, married for 8. We met in college and were each other's firsts and onlys. I honestly believed we had a special and unique relationship because of that, but apparently I was just fooling myself. A while back, Sarah started working at a new company. At first, she struggled to fit in because she's always been a bit reserved, but after some encouragement from me, she made friends with a group of girls, some single, divorced, or just dating, but not married. Initially, I was happy she made friends, but then she started going out for drinks, partying, or whatever else her friends had planned. I became worried about her change in behavior and tried to talk to her about it. I didn't want to restrict her in any way, but it started affecting our relationship in the bedroom. Sarah was never one to initiate intimacy, but with her constant nights out, she was either too tired or just not in the mood. Then her company got a new manager, Jake, who she and her friends seemed to adore. She began mentioning him casually, but soon it was all about how he handled various problems, some of which didn't seem work-related. I questioned her fascination with Jake, but she brushed off my concerns. She even started asking if I regretted not having more experience with other women. I told her no, because she was all I ever needed. I thought I saw a flicker of sadness in her eyes, but she quickly changed the subject. Out of the blue, Sarah started talking about open marriages as a way to spice things up. I was shocked because she was never this kind of person, and not that liberal sexually. I initially refused and questioned if this had anything to do with Jake. She denied it but said she felt like she had missed out and didn't want to lose me, so this was a safer option. I warned her she was playing with fire but reluctantly agreed, naively thinking it might help. We set some rules, mainly not to sleep with anyone in our home. For a year, Sarah went on dates and had one-night stands, and predictably ended up in some kind of relationship with Jake. Meanwhile, I went on a few dates but had no one-night stands because it just felt wrong to me. Sarah would ask if I was okay but wouldn't change her behavior. Eventually, the love I had for her, that pure and special innocence of marriage, felt shattered, and it was killing me inside. I ended up going on a date with an amazing woman named Hana, who had moved here from South Korea. Conversation was effortless. She had a wit like a lightning-fast whip crack and a smile that made me forget myself. This led to more dates, and eventually we were intimate. I had never experienced anything like it. Hana made me feel so desired and appreciated. At first, Sarah thought it was cute, but as the months went by, she began questioning my relationship with Hana. I reminded her that this was her idea and that she was in a relationship with Jake, the very man I had been concerned about. She went silent, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Suddenly, she started coming home early to surprise me with dinner, cleaning the house extra meticulously, dropping off lunch at my workplace, and even initiating intimacy in the bedroom. Honestly, if it wasn't for her suggesting an open marriage, which I am also to blame for agreeing to, all this would have had me jumping for joy. I barely gave in to her attempts at intimacy, and when I did, it was just to get it over with. Something in me towards Sarah died, and I could see she felt it too. I asked her what brought on this sudden change in her, what was different. She said she wanted to show me that she loves me and is happy with me. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. I asked about her little group of friends, her manager lover, or her one-night stands. She didn't respond that day and just went to bed in tears. The next day, I came home to find her waiting for me. She told me she wanted to close the marriage, that this whole experience was a horrible mistake, that she regrets everything, and wants us to be the focus of our relationship again. I told her to be honest with me and explain what inspired all this in the first place. Wouldn't you know it? It was her group of friends who planted the idea because of their numerous sexual exploits. And when her manager came around, he surprisingly supported that lifestyle and encouraged Sarah to live free. Apparently it developed into an emotional affair, but only got physical once the marriage opened. Yeah, like that makes it better. She described it as being drunk behind the wheel of a speeding car, thrilling and intoxicating, but the price of this decision has become too much for her to bear. She sees now that she never needed a comparison, that what we had was truly unique and special. But now she feels like she murdered our marriage and any chance of a life together. I told her I might never be able to see her as my wife again, and this made her break down in front of me. I simply held her in silence as she cried until she fell asleep in my arms on the couch. She has since left her job, cut off contact with all her friends and her manager, and even told me she's willing to spend the rest of her life making it up to me and work her fingers to the bone to be seen as a wife by me again. But I haven't cut contact with my lover. Hannah, quite frankly, makes me feel like a man, like I can challenge the world, something my wife hasn't done for a while. The truth is, I don't know what to do in this situation. I would love to get that special feeling back if possible, but Hannah basically saved me when I was at my lowest. Please help me. Oh, and I forgot to add, we have our first marriage counseling session in a couple of hours. Not sure how that will go. Update. The therapist seemed nice and experienced. She appeared unbiased and genuinely eager to help. Even though it was our very first session, Sarah took it as an opportunity to lay it all out. She confessed that her group of friends made her wonder if she had missed her chance at living because she was committed to her first boyfriend and had no other experiences. She never had the same adventures some of these supposedly amazing women had, women who, mind you, are divorced and not married. The therapist pointed out that this mindset can be, and often is, detrimental to a marriage. Sarah seemed to agree and added that after the new manager, Jake, started approaching her, some of these friends encouraged her to see where it goes, saying it was a chance for her to explore or discover herself. She claimed she felt guilty, so she never did anything physical until one of the divorced ones suggested an open marriage as a loophole, saying some couples come out stronger because of it. So, after regretfully convincing me to open up the marriage, her so-called adventure began. It was intoxicating and blinding but lacked real substance, not like the kind we built over the years. She started to question her reasons for doing this. She said she could see the hurt in my eyes but told herself this was an adventure. She says she'll never forgive herself for this. A chance to have an amazing experience. So the gravity of it all never hit her until she noticed a change in me. At first, she assumed that because I went on dates, I would gradually accept her situation and be okay with it. But that all changed when Hannah became a constant presence in my life. Apparently, I started to smile again for no reason, and my eyes would light up when I got a text message or cheerfully left the room to answer a call. Sarah said she suddenly felt a pit in her stomach and started to get mini panic attacks. She went to her friends for advice again, but they said it was a normal reaction for me to have during the adventure. But when the same divorced friend who suggested this in the first place said, "It looks like his lover makes him happy," the reality of it all finally dawned on her. The very real possibility that another woman and not his wife gave him joy almost made her pass out. She realized how ridiculous this all was and begged them to help her win me back. They just told her that if she couldn't deal with it, why did she open her marriage in the first place? She knew then and there that these people were toxic and a threat to our marriage and the life we built. Hence, she's been on a mission to win me back by any means necessary. I, on the other hand, didn't share much but did let the counselor know about the situation on my side with Hannah still in the picture. The counselor said no resolution could ever be reached with my lover still in the picture and suggested we book another appointment. The counselor did say it was unusual for someone to stay with their first this long and gave the impression that any storm can be weathered. I highly suspect she wants us to be one of her success stories. Update. Thank you all for your support. It's been quite literally like an episode of Jerry Springer. I have since moved into an apartment owned by my brother for a ridiculously cheap price. He owns properties and would have let me stay for free, but I refused that. Just a little of what I have uncovered about Sarah's behavior and some unsettling things about her manager, Jake. During our second counseling session, I asked some questions. 1. If she was sure nothing physical happened before the opening of the marriage. She looked towards the ground and begged me not to make her say it. She said if she said it, then it would destroy us. But after some pushing, she shared that it wasn't physical, but they touched themselves in front of each other. This douchebag convinced her that since it wasn't technically physical, it wasn't technically cheating, and that they were simply enjoying each other's full beauty. I was absolutely floored by this, and she started shaking and hyperventilating. Snot even began flowing from her nostrils as she cried and apologized to me. At this point, even the counselor was taken aback and had a look of disbelief. Sarah got on her knees and hugged my legs, saying how sorry she was. 2. I then asked her what really changed her view of him. She said after she started pulling back from the group as a whole, his behavior towards her changed. Then one evening, as she was leaving a meeting, She passed his office and heard him speaking about her to another male colleague. He said he was surprised at how easy it was to get her, and how she is living proof that you can't trust the quiet ones. When the colleague asked if he actually fancied her, his response was that she was a pleasant distraction, and that he had absolutely no intention of breaking up with his fiancée. He even added that this was simply to get it out of his system, because the only woman who has ever understood him was his fiancée, and he didn't want to break up with her. He also mentioned how he felt bad for me but said, "You snooze, you lose." Sarah, upon realizing that she was nothing more than a piece of meat to this man, added to the fact that she betrayed me for a cheap thrill, actually made her suicidal in that moment. She said she left her workplace and vomited in the parking lot. She also added that her first thoughts were, "What have I done? And my name? Please forgive me, I'm so sorry." 3. I then asked her if she loved him, and when she stopped loving me. She looked me dead in the eye through tears and said she never stopped loving me, which honestly makes it worse, and that he was just something different. She thought it was love, but now realizes how foolish that was. She squeezed my arm with surprising strength and said she knows she messed up, but misses us, and the connection we had before all this. She even suggested we move away and start fresh, just the two of us, just as it was meant to be. I then told her it wouldn't be fair to my lover, and that I need time away from her to process all of this. It was like she had a meltdown at those words. She started sobbing harder and saying incoherent things. She held on to me as if I was going to disappear. It took some time for both me and the counselor to calm her down. The counselor managed to convince her that maybe time apart could help us heal. Now I wish I could end the update with just this, but as we got home, I began to pack, and Sarah got a video call on her laptop. It was one of her former friends in tears. It turns out that after Sarah resigned, this friend and Jake began a fling of their own. Apparently, she had a pregnancy scare which caused him to basically turn into Dr. Jekyll. To make matters worse, she had a boyfriend whom she could see a future with. The only reason she even had a fling was because she was curious about the experience. Funny how that seems to be a trend. Her boyfriend found out because he discovered an email between the two discussing the potential pregnancy, but Jake basically accused her of baby trapping him. Of course, her boyfriend left her, and the reason she made contact was that she was under the impression that Sarah managed to save our marriage and was desperately seeking advice. I just turned and left, and have been staying in the apartment ever since. Update. Well, quite a bit has happened. The former friend who had the pregnancy scare was indeed pregnant, but the stress of losing her boyfriend and being humiliated by the affair caused her to lose the baby. She basically went ballistic and went full scorched earth on Jake. She exposed him to all upper management and his fiancée. I happened to find his fiancée on Facebook, was curious, and this woman is basically the poster child of a pretty small-town girl. Based on her profile, she's a special needs teacher, a homebody, and very family-oriented. My very first thought was, what the hell is he doing messing around with other women when he's got her at home? Honestly, why men like him end up with women like her is one of the greatest mysteries of life. The former friend actually got in contact with me. She wanted my side of the version of events because she was collecting evidence against him, but she wanted to do it in person, and I agreed. From the moment I saw her face, I knew she was broken. The dark circles under her eyes and her red-colored irises clearly showed she didn't get any sleep and was haunted by her own thoughts. She thanked me for agreeing to meet her and immediately apologized for her role in Sarah's adventure. Turns out, she and Sarah spoke again, and that's when she learned I had moved out. She didn't shift blame and wanted to take responsibility, hence why she wanted to meet in person. I thanked her for her efforts, but asked her why she would go this far. She said losing both a child and the love of her life changed who she was at the core. She said she can hardly look in the mirror without feeling disgust and can hardly sleep because all she sees is her ex's face the day he found out. This woman clearly hated herself, and this meeting might have been a form of punishment for her. She tells me that fraternizing among co-workers is a breach of conduct, and more so because he was in a position of influence. He will most likely be fired and possibly blacklisted from the field altogether. However, the same might be true for her as well, and she has accepted it. She left after getting my side of the story and apologized again. I needed to get a few things from the old place, so I picked a time when I thought Sarah wouldn't be home. Unfortunately, she was there, But what surprised me was that she had most of our wedding photos out on the coffee table, along with others, and she was staring at them. When she noticed me, I could see she had been crying. She tried to hug me, but I gently pushed her aside. She tried to offer me lunch, but I told her I wasn't hungry and that I wouldn't be long, just needed a few things. Before I could proceed, she said she had something to show me. She pulled out her phone and showed me a message she received 2 days ago from her former manager, Jake, who was berating her. It was from a new number since she had blocked his old one. Apparently, Sarah had helped her former friend expose him to all relevant parties, and he was fuming. She said she got the idea from Chump Lady and Marriage Builders. She thought by exposing the secret, she was removing its power, as well as giving us a fighting chance. I told her I was glad that she had the courage to do that, but it doesn't change anything between us. I also informed her that I would be stopping marriage counseling, but would continue with individual counseling instead. This made her sob softly, and she said she understood. I know I am supposed to feel either elation for the actions taken or rage because it took this long, but I feel numb towards her. This isn't normal, hence why I want to address it in individual counseling and not marriage counseling. I've also seen a divorce lawyer at my brother's recommendation, just to be safe. As of now, I am not really willing to fight for this marriage, and it seems Sarah can sense it. Before I left, she tried to initiate intimacy, but when I refused, she yelled and asked, "What does your lover do for you that I can't? What does she give you that I can't?" In a voice so loud I'm sure the neighbors heard it, she said that whatever it was I wanted, she would do it. I shook my head and told her that if she still couldn't tell after all that's happened, then it's clear where our marriage is headed, and left. I left the apartment feeling a mixture of emotions: anger, sadness, frustration, and a deep sense of betrayal. As I walked to my car, I couldn't help but replay the events of the past few months in my mind. The woman I had loved for a decade had turned into someone I hardly recognized. It was as if a stranger had taken her place, a stranger who had shattered our life together with a single decision. I arrived at my brother's apartment, my temporary sanctuary from the chaos. The silence was comforting, giving me space to think. I sat down and pulled out my phone, scrolling through messages from friends and family who had reached out with support. Each message was a reminder that I wasn't alone, even though it felt like it at times. The next day, I met with my therapist for an individual session. I poured out my heart, sharing everything that had happened, my feelings of numbness, and my confusion about what to do next. The therapist listened patiently, offering insights and guidance. She emphasized the importance of taking time to heal and not rushing any decisions. Meanwhile, Sarah continued her attempts to reconcile. She sent me long messages, filled with apologies and promises to change. She even showed up at my brother's apartment unannounced, pleading for another chance. Each encounter left me more drained and convinced that our marriage was beyond repair. One evening, I received a call from Hannah. She had been a constant source of support, understanding my turmoil in ways that no one else could. We talked for hours, her soothing voice a balm to my wounded heart. She never pressured me, always respecting my need for space and time to sort through my feelings. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself reflecting on what I truly wanted. The idea of a fresh start, free from the shadows of betrayal, became more appealing. I began to envision a future where I could rebuild my life, focusing on my own happiness and well-being. Finally, I made a decision. I called Sarah and told her that I had filed for divorce. The conversation was brief, filled with tears and finality. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a sense of relief that I hadn't felt in months. In the weeks that followed, I focused on myself. I continued therapy, leaned on my support network, and slowly started to rebuild my life. I reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies I had neglected, and began to see a glimmer of hope for the future. As for Hannah, she remained a constant presence, a reminder that love and happiness were still possible. We took things slow, allowing our relationship to develop naturally. She respected my need for healing, never pushing for more than I could give. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the most painful experiences can lead to the most profound growth. I had been through hell, but I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined to live a life that was true to myself. This is where I am now, at least for the moment. Once again, thank you all for your help and support. Your words of encouragement have been a lifeline, guiding me through the darkest days and giving me hope for a brighter future.